Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
The senator from District 5 here in Arkansas, State Senator Bryan King, is back with us. Bryan, good to have you, sir.
Hey, good to be on, Paul.
Let's talk about the news. Over the weekend, I guess it broke. Michael Wickline with the headline, State Senator won't seek re-election. Tell us about that, Bryan. Why did you decide not to run again? Because you are a great conservative with a great passion for transparency. So what led up? What contributed to the decision of not running for re-election?
Yeah, most of it is, with the farm and everything. I'm not, 3.5 hours from Little Rock, and a lot of things have changed in the last 12 years about what's going on here, and so some family reasons, and just that's one thing that's the primary focus, for me, and so that's kind of it, and it's if you look at it from the Little Rock perspective, I think some other people kind of expanded on some of the frustrations you see down there, since Republicans have taken control, if you want to call it that, in so-called Republicans. Crimes, we've talked about this, crime's horrible. It's gotten worse. There's all-time record spending. Mm-hmm. There's more people on Medicaid. And, they go out there and continue to mislead people. And just, it's just very frustrating in the legislature to sit there and no matter what facts come out, no matter what comes out, they just continue to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing in D.C. It's the same frustration up there. How many years did they campaign against Obamacare? And you know what? When they had the chance, no, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But when they need to get elected, they say this stuff. And that just gets into the last thing that just recently happened.
Well, and I want to get to that in a minute, but you said 12 years. So I just want to say, first of all, that's long enough. I wanted you. I wanted you to run for re-election because I know how you see things, and but at the same time, what a sacrifice to go down there the way you have, and serve, and does anybody really want to say, well, you've given 10, 12 years, over a decade of your life, and you need to give more. I wish we had folks who, were like you that would step up and run, and give a little time.
Well, we
themselves.
have, and we've elected them, and unfortunately, Paul, they go down there and do the opposite.
Yeah.
And we've been a part of. When I came in, there were 75 Democrats in the House, 25 Republicans, and so we started working on some things that tried to change it and stuff. And what's going to have to happen is there's going to have to be a change in the leadership down there, and this misleading, deceiving governor has got to go. There's some people that once they get to he's deceived now, they give him a chance, and they're like, well, Bryan, I'm like, I know the Hutchisons. I know how their game they play. They all, once they get into office, and then once they leave office, guess what? They're going and getting a check and being a lobbyist or something. They are they typify what's wrong with our public service.
So
it's like this public is there to serve them.
Yeah.
And like I said, once they leave office, they're going to become a lobbyist, or they're going to do something to get a check. If not while they're in office, possibly.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is, when they come in, it's like, oh, well, give Asa a chance, give everything a chance. Well, you do, and then, we're going to have SB 96 that's going to end Medicaid expansion. Remember that?
Yep.
Didn't happen. It took Medicaid expansion to steroids.
Yep. Gave it new life.
And so, and that's like I said, that's frustrating down there. And then you see the things that just like I've been speaking out over the years about some of the things that's going on. What the heck's going on here? Is there something going on? And it comes out Michael Lamoureux's getting a check, Gilbert Baker, Jake Files, and then still no action down there of trying to correct anything. And then
can I ask one?
And I'm not so sure Asa Hutchinson doesn't need to have questions about possible pay-to-play stuff.
Can I ask you a question? We're talking with Senator Bryan King. One more question about the process and your service, your time down there. So when you start out, you're a House member, and the Republicans are a minority. They're an up-and-coming party. They're trying to wrestle legislative control away from the Democrats. And, there was probably a lot more unity than there is now, or at least, we have common goals. These are our common goals. And now that the Republican Party is in power, it doesn't seem like we have those common goals of limiting government. And so, is that what you signed up for? Obviously, it's not.
Yeah,
what we have
it's about doing what you say to tell people back home when you get elected. Okay, how many Arkansas legislators campaigned to end Medicaid expansion in Arkansas, and then turn down there and go down there and do the opposite? And once they get caught up in it, and so that's what happens. But I've been around in politics enough. In 2006, when the Republicans got thrown out of Congress, you know what they did? Their base left them. They said, you know what? We got you elected, and they're doing the same thing. I mean, Bob Ballinger's out there. He was on Ellswick, and I'll be on Ellswick tomorrow, and I'll address a little bit of that, where he says, just quit criticizing us. Just, let's just keep, just don't be criticizing us. Let's have unity. Let's have this. This is about saying, no, you were supposed to do what you said you were going to do, and they haven't done it.
Yep.
And
exactly
they do the opposite of it. And eventually, guess what? You get thrown back out of power. And what happened is this next midterm election, outside of this tax cut deal up there, that you're going to see things have in D.C., despite what Trump's tried to do, is continue to stay the same. Asa Hutchinson's even worse in that, if you look at the bills on the crime issue, that him and Jeremy Hutchinson, who's the biggest failure ever as Senate Judiciary Chairman. I mean, he was supposed to be the go-to guy to address our prison population and crime and everything like that. Well, guess what? It's got worse. But he's still in there. And Asa Hutchinson still comes out and says, he's got this or that. And he seems to be more shoving things off on federal law enforcement instead of the state. But they're doing some things. But the reality is, what are you doing to our law enforcement when you've sit there and done Medicaid expansion and everything else and all this, and spent billions more in Medicaid, and you've ignored our crime situation to the point that it's literally, Paul, this is just it. We got to take millions of dollars to do that. But we're off on another deal. But I kind of want to talk about this last.
Yeah, I do too. But what you're saying is right up. I mean,
it's right up this same alley of now.
The everything the stuff that a vast majority of us agree this is the government's responsibility to keep criminals behind bars and carry out their full sentences. We're giving up on that. And because we're spending on other priorities. So let's talk about that. The headline: the state cut revenue forecast by $22.1 million. Governor Hutchinson says, though, that we're not going to cut the state's projected budget, even though we're having to, cut the revenue forecast.
Yeah.
That seems weird. I want to talk about specifically something he said about we're going, quote, as an additional conservative tool to manage the budget, we will present to the General Assembly a fiscal 2019 budget that will reduce spending. This will provide sufficient cushion in the event there is an unanticipated economic news that changes the revenue picture next year, end quote. And then the paper goes on to point out that he gives no specifics about what the conservative tool would be. What do you make of this?
Well, first off, Governor Hutchinson, once again, misleading and deceiving people. This is the same guy, the all-time record spendingest governor in Arkansas history, all-time record spendingest governor in Medicaid. Okay, this is the same guy when he was not going to make projections and did a cut that said, hang on a minute, I've got too much communication going on
That's
here.
all right.
But this is the same guy that said, I don't have a spending problem. Why does he need a conservative tool for a guy that doesn't have a spending problem? I don't know that he needs to reduce spending. Why does he need another tool? But he was the one that said, it's just the taxpayers didn't send me enough money. Okay? But what Governor Hutchinson's really saying is he doesn't need a conservative tool. He needs conservative fools. He needs to fool the people again. He has all the tools are available for this. You have a Category A, a Category B. You do this, you fund A. Then if you have the money, then you fund B. Then you have these others. And so the other tool he has which he totally ignores or, schemed around, was the 75 vote threshold on appropriation bills.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Him and Bart Hester and Jim Hendren and them, if do you respect the Constitution or you don't? Okay? And you can't say you respect the Constitution when all you do is come up with some lawyer legal scheme to get around it, and they did.
Yep, that's exactly right. So you're saying, he already has a tool to reduce spending, and it's called the Arkansas Constitution, and he did
and your own voting and your own budget mechanisms. There is all kinds of tools that it's already there. He doesn't need – what he needs is conservative fools that he can continue to fool people because, see, our budget years are on July 1st to end of June the next year. Okay, so he goes into an election year, and I saw Mike Beebe do the same thing. He goes into election year, and he goes in this budget session, and he's going to implement this conservative tool for the next time. Well, he's only got about 4 months or 5 months until the election. And then after that, he's got another 4 years. So this is just another gimmick that he's going to use for the next budget session. The problem is he keeps spending too much. And where's most of the spending? Medicaid. And who's responsible for all the spending and the problem we're in? Asa Hutchinson and the leadership down there, and everybody else that just falls in line with them.
Yeah. No, I think you're right about that. And I will say this. I think his comments about trying, using the buzzword, we're going to put an additional conservative tool to try to reduce spending.
Yes,
I think
he is.
I think this is him saying, hey, listen, I know that the base out there has gotten word that I've increased spending $130 million, $140 million, and $170 million the 3 years I've been here. And I think people are now starting to associate me in the base with being a big spender. So I'm going to start trying, like you said, to use these buzzwords to try to, paint a picture that he is who he's not. And that's how he kind of got elected. I mean, if you go back and look at his campaign commercials, he said he opposed Obamacare. He said he supported the Second Amendment. He said all these things, but we have legislative record now that suggest otherwise.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like the last measure that they say is going to take off so many people. And 1 year, him and Dismayne go out there, if you want to talk about reducing spending, and what they do that they don't attack me on is they keep saying, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? First thing you need to do is cap enrollment, period.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
First thing, and he opposed that,
Yep.
okay? If you got a bad program, it's growing out of control, all this stuff and everything like that, what's the first thing you need to do? You need to cap it. He opposed it, number one. Number two is you need to go to a less expensive form of Medicaid, and that is just the straight Medicaid, not this insurance scam that Jonathan Dismayne loves to give Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then they turn around and hire his best friend. I mean, that right there, rotten, stinks. And then Dismayne runs the next bill. The same guy that had every failure and everything wrong with the Medicaid deal, had personal friends get jobs, and then all of a sudden he runs the next Medicaid bill. You know what? If you go along with it, you're a fool, period. And that's what I stood down there and asked Senator Dismayne. I said, well, 1 year here you said we take off people off the Medicaid, your Medicaid, more expensive insurance scam Medicaid expansion. We take people off, there's going to be a hole in the budget. How many times we heard that, Paul?
Mm-hmm.
Hole in the budget.
Yep.
If we take people off. Well, next year, him and Asa Hutchinson say, no, we're going to save money. Which is it? I mean, the press is not holding them accountable for it. It's all been out there.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. We're about out of time. We're talking with Senator Bryan King. He has announced that he's not running for re-election. There was a lot of anticipation among, folks that would talk to me at the Capitol. And they would say, listen, the FBI has been running around here for several years. There are, coming indictments, that sort of thing. Some people, I was one included, thought that it was going to kind of revolve around the December 4th trial date of, the corruption trial of John Woods. Of course, that has been now postponed. And so I'm just curious, have you heard anything? I mean, there are all these rumors about somebody's going to be indicted and yet it never seems to happen. It's been going on for way too long, a couple of years now. What are your thoughts on that? And could could a massive corruption, I mean, a massive revealing of corruption, could that maybe make you change your mind and consider running for re-election?
I mean, I don't know. Some of this stuff I'm not going to comment on. What I'm going to say is that you never know. I mean, till the filing period, happens. Charlotte Douglas is still out there, and she hadn't decided. If she runs against Ballinger, she'll clean his clock. I mean, Ballinger won't. Ballinger has preached one thing and done another. I could go into numerous examples about that. Not only, I mean, he has more holes than a screen door. I mean, so I'm not worried about him or that. But
and you failed, so you didn't endorse him in the reports I read.
No,
and you said
absolutely
Charlotte
not.
Douglas.
He epitomizes. Yeah, if Charlotte Douglas, decides to run, then she'll be the next. And Ballard's on the ballot. Charlotte Douglas will be the next state senator. Anyway, but so that's it. But you never know you never know what's going to happen. To the filing period and we'll just see what happens. But there's going to have to be something to shake up this bunch. But number one is back to Asa Hutchinson and this leadership bunch. I mean, I'm just going to keep commenting on what's come out. Jake Files, $80,000. Jake Files, $80,000. Michael Lamreau, Gilbert Baker. Look at just as what's come out.
I know.
I mean,
it doesn't make it's strange how much we know. That is just like, whoa, I mean, you're not supposed to get elected and make a ton of money, right? Like, that's not...
Well, yeah, and we're talking about, personal muscle. But, like I said, public service is about serving the public. It's not about them serving you. And that's what you see in this whole, typically, that's what keeps the politics. It's just like I said about the Hutchinson. The minute they get beat in an election, the fastest thing, faster than a speeding bullet, is they're going to be a lobbyist and get a check off somebody.
Bryan King, I appreciate your service. Thank you so much for coming on the program, and I can't wait to do it again.
Thanks a lot, Paul.
All right, folks. Senator Bryan King, everybody. It's a shame he's not running. But, he leaves the window open a little bit if you listen to what he said. We got to take a...
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.